More people, more fun.
Indeed. All right, we are back. We are back. Sorry about that, everyone. Sorry about that. Anyways, we are back, and all right. So here we are then. So yeah, welcome to the live stream, everyone. Ace here, and oh wait, I forgot one more thing. Well, that's going to do some interesting things for the stream, I'm sure.
Let's access it.
You can't access it?
No, me neither.
Okay, let me just change the permissions for everything. We'll see if that does it. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Good. All right. Hello, everyone. Ace here.
No.
Nope.
Well, darn. You know what? I'll just delete this channel here, and I'll just move everything to the events channel. So we'll just do it that way. All right. Now you should be able to see it.
Yes.
There we are. Perfect. All right. So sorry about the confusion, everyone. I'm admittedly trying to get this all squared away proper. But yeah. Today we are, of course, joined with multiple guests, specifically Alfarius, Oros, Nathan, and, well, that's about it right now. But we might get more guests later on, and today we're going to be having a look at the BattleTanx comic. This is an extremely, extremely rare comic that came out either in 1999 or in 2000. There's a reason why I'm pretty sure it's in one of those 2 years, and it's because it was made as a promotional material for BattleTanx Global Assault, the sequel, and basically just caps off the story thus far, basically. So yeah, let's go ahead, and I think the way we're going to do this, as part of my plan, is we're going to have it so that we all basically read a line and just take turns reading various lines, because most of this is just the main protagonist of the game monologuing to us. The main protagonist, for those who don't know, being Griffin Spade. So, to give you a good idea of what we're going with, let's go ahead and actually have a look at the...
Did you mean to just post the first, what I assume is the first page?
Yeah.
Alright.
So, the protagonist of the games, ladies and gents, Griffin Spade.
Chadman.
Yep.
Because holy fucking shit, that chin.
Indeed. So yeah, that's who we're going to be. That's who you play as in the games. And what are the games? Well, they are a vehicle combat game centered around tanks, set in a post-apocalyptic setting. And you also have destructible terrain and a whole bunch of other good stuff. And the games are incredibly based, to put it lightly. Tehedora waves his hand. Welcome to the stream, Tehedora. So anyways, you know what? I guess I'll go first just for the sake of it. And who wants to go second, third, and fourth?
I'll go second.
All
Right. Rush, you want to be third or fourth?
It's not that hard of a decision.
All right, tell you what. Heads or tails?
Tails.
Tails it is.
Because I think Ross was like fell asleep or something.
Oh, okay. So
your mic.
So
there he
tails.
is.
So I guess Nathan is third and Oros.
Sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
All right, so I guess I'll start off. I find it hard to remember how it started all those years ago. To remember how the plague took almost all the female population of the planet.
All the cities had plague pits, into which the bodies of the dead were bulged.
The violence started long before the grief had gone. Governments decided in the best interests of the people, the male people. The remaining few women should be protected and kept. Okay. Even if they and their loved ones did not agree. Oh.
Oh no.
Okay.
You cannot make this game today. What? Holy fuck.
Holy shit!
By the way, in case this game wasn't any more prophetic, the shit starts to turn south in the plot in 2001. Because, of course, it does.
I wonder why.
Big mystery, I'm sure. So yeah, the plot is, and by the way, you'll notice this if you played the games as well. The games very, very rarely use the words man or woman. It's almost always male or female throughout the entire game. Which you might not have noticed back then, but these days, you're probably going to notice these days.
Mhm.
For reasons.
Indeed. Well, this one is mine, I suppose.
Yep.
As usual, when governments make decisions in the best interest of the people, we have trouble. Big trouble. When governments fall out, we get fallout.
So yeah, nukes started flying. Awesome.
No big surprise.
So I am going to go ahead and cover some lore here since this is also going to be as much a lore video as it is a comic stream, because you kind of need to know the lore of the game to appreciate the comic. This comic was made for fans of the game, so you kind of knew this already or were expected to. But anyways, Johnny O'Malley says, hello everyone, Johnny's here. Welcome, Johnny. You're in for a very, very rare comic book today. That's to say the very least. This comic book is actually so rare, I'm actually somewhat convinced it might have been at risk of becoming lost media for a moment there. But fortunately, thanks to some other people, they were able to post it on a server, and I was able to get a hold of it. And thanks to Osmegon, we were able to make the text easier to read. So that was the... Yeah, so anyways, so the plot of the game at this point was, with the whole nukes and whatnot, was the government started ordering the National Guard to open fire on protesters who were not happy with the government taking the women away and putting them into quarantine facilities, we'll call them. And the government started ordering National Guard to open fire the civilians. The National Guard units that did this ended up regretting that so thoroughly that they ended up switching sides and joining the civilians and engaging in a civil war. And that's when the nukes started flying. At least in the lore, anyways. And don't worry... Huh?
Makes sense.
Yeah. And don't worry, we'll be covering some of the factions, because they actually end up being some of the playable factions in the game as well. Johnny says, we will bury you, bitch. You look like you just got out of the grave. And not like Courier 6. Yeah. BattleTanx with an X at the end, because poor literacy is... cool. Fair enough. Well, it's also because this game came out in the 90s. And replacing KS with X is something that you did in the 90s sometimes to sound cool, alright?
It was the good times.
And I'll also be covering the gangs too, like the We Will Bury You gang a little bit, because that's actually from the sequel and not from the original game. But anyways, let me carry on. From the devastated cities came things that were less than human. Crawling, shambling, undead, screaming things that only had one thought. Kill, kill, and kill again. 1, 2, 3. We will bury
you.
Alright.
Perfect coordination, as always.
Indeed. So I'm going to actually cover two gangs here, because these guys are actually stand-in, I'm pretty sure, for one of the gangs in the original game. So the gang that they're a stand-in for is these guys. The Urban Decay, as they're called. Anyone here care to read the description for the gang here?
Yeah, I
The
can.
decay is made up
okay.
of street punks and... Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
And predatory vermin, having survived the radiation fallout by living in underground sewers. They mutated to maniacal cannibals before moving above to claim the devastated city.
So yeah, a gang of mutant cannibals that were previously street gangs. Yeah, that's basically the lore on these guys, and self-explanatory on them. But the gang that is used as a stand-in is actually from the sequel, and that gang is very specifically these guys, the Cold Warriors. So, what's the lore on these guys? Well, they're actually a gang, and by the way, all the factions in these games are referred to as gangs, whether they're good guys or bad guys, for the record. But anyways, the lore on these guys is that they were ex-German military who got heavily affected by radiation, as you can see, and basically are turned into cyborgs that are more walking skeletons than everything else. So basically, these guys can be best described as this game's equivalent to feral ghouls, more or less.
Mm.
Also, they are psychotic, and also their special ability in-game is that they have the chance to spawn with a nuke. And yes, nukes are in this vehicle combat game.
Nukes make
Am I
everything
elaborating
better.
on how that works?
Well, for one thing, there is destructible terrain in an N64 game.
Oh.
And did I mention that some of the maps that you fight on include Parliament and the White House? Nico says hello, big. Hey, Nico, I actually invited you. You're more than welcome to come on if you want.
Join the madness.
He might actually need to, he might need a link to it, so let me just do that real quick. There you go. Alright. But yeah, so, yeah, like I said, anyways, the Cold Warriors are the guys that are stand-ins for Urban Decay in this comic here. Because, again, this was made to promote the sequel, Global Assault. Johnny says, why am I imagining firing a fat man at someone and these guys rise up from the explosion? Sounds about right. Oh, Nico says still working. Oh, my bad. Okay, fair enough. Rose says, believe me, nukes don't kill enough on this one. There are a few ways also to escape a nuke blast in the game. First of all, in the sequel anyways, there's underground tunnels that you can just go into. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, at least in the sequel, you also get a teleporter that you can use, and you just teleport when it goes off and escape the explosion that way, basically. But anyways, let's go ahead and carry on. I believe, Alpharius, you're up.
From the radioactive deserts and wastelands appeared the first of the tank, driven by gangs who came to kill and enslave.
And we get to hear a little bit more about me talking about Loria. You guys don't mind, do you?
Nah.
Go ahead.
Perfect. So,
No.
Oh, I still have to discuss if the moto tank is a tank or not.
Yep. Moto Tank is a fan favorite in the games, and you also see a Goliath in the background. And for those who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, let me go ahead and pull some of these up. So here's a Moto Tank. Not the best resolution on these, but it works. But yeah, that's the Moto Tank there. It's basically a cross between a motorcycle and a tank. And then you have the Goliath, which are these guys, which have a massive, enormous gun on the top.
Size matters in this game.
The Goliath tank, also known as the fucking compensation tank.
There's actually a thing you can do in the game as well, where if there's a mode called Battle Lord, and I'll be talking about that as well, because in Battle Lord, the way it works is you have one of these Goliaths defending your base, but it's on rails. But they get a special ability when they're on rails going side to side, and that is the main gun of the Goliath tank becomes fully automatic. So imagine that massive compensation gun firing like a machine gun.
I didn't remember
Stupidest
that.
thing I've ever heard of, and that's amazing.
There's also an upgraded version of the Goliath that you see that you get to fight in Global Assault. That's a boss tank called the Annihilator, which is this guy with a couple of miniguns mounted to the sides.
Because more DACA.
I think is it just me or some of these vehicles look like they would fit right in with 40K?
Most
Yeah.
likely.
No, yeah,
Definitely Road
absolutely. It
Trader.
kind of looks like an orc has just cobbled all the shit together from what they've seen.
It looks.
Well,
heck,
I
some
mean,
of
not
them
to
look like
mention
early
as well,
squat tech.
do you know what Urban Decay? Do you know the dude on the left? He looks a lot like an orc, like a grinning orc.
But speaking of gangs, I think it's a perfect time for me to actually show the other gang, one of the gangs that just got showed with the image there with the moto tank, and that's these guys, the Skull Riders. Nathan, would you be so kind as to read the description for these guys?
Destruction is a way of life for this roaming, motorized wolf pack made up of outlaw gangs and bikers. Although gas is harder to find and the roadhouses are all closed, they still get their kicks causing mayhem and death on Route 666. Because it's got to be 666, because edgy funny.
Of course.
Edgy funny, haha, the devil. Get it?
Yeah, the game. You'll also notice, by the way, a distinction from the art style. The art style gets a little bit of a facelift between the original game and the sequel, because this is one of the few gangs that made it to the sequel. You can see the art design went for a rather interesting direction. I actually kind of like what they did in that case.
Yeah, it's nice.
But yeah, lore on these guys is they're a biker gang, of course, before the nukes fell. And they're also the ones that are known for making the moto tanks. They're the inventors, basically. So anyways,
Oh man.
kind of makes sense. Johnny says, "Is there a freezer to use as an escape?" He's referring to the nuke. No, that's stupid. Also, yes, kill and slave in that order. We love their zombie slaves. Johnny says, "Is there a weapon that can blow up the Goliath by plugging its nozzle called the David?" There's several ways to kill Goliaths in the game. Especially, first of all, guided missiles are a thing. And the guided missile still works even if they destroy your tank. So that's always that's an option, although you typically need to hit it multiple times. But there's an upgraded version that shoots lasers as well. Option 2, mines, because it's a big, heavier tank. It's going to have a tougher time avoiding them. And I suppose some of the faster... There's also the Rhino, which is a dedicated anti-Goliath tank. Basically, it's a tank destroyer. It will be getting to the Rhino soon enough, I think. But anyways, Johnny asks, says, "No, they look too much like they could fit in our world. Eat your heart out. Skeleton warriors were the Skull Riders. Did someone say something about eating hearts? Buzz off, cannibals." Fair enough. All right, so I believe we've read page 2, so let's go on to the next page. And again, credit to Osmegon for making the text easier to read. So I believe it was Alferis. So Nathan, I think you're up next.
I wanted to survive. I commandeered a Mini Abrams, the ultimate war machine, the best for crossing deserts and fighting battles.
Eros, I think you get that next line.
Fire!
Rumble, rumble. All right. Well, there is one tank I'm going to talk about real quick here, because it does show it briefly in the background there. That is another tank that's really good at killing Goliaths. It's called the Hornet. And let's see. Here we are. It's a tank that shoots rockets at people. Pretty effective against Hornets, or against Goliaths. Also, a lot of the tanks in the sequel gain special abilities. This one has the ability to actually arc its rockets so it can actually shoot around corners and stuff like that.
Hey, what the heck is that? That vehicle actually looks like it could exist in real life. What kind of scam is this?
They stole it from 40K.
Yep. Johnny here left us a little message. Sting. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it does do that pretty well. Anyways, let's go ahead. I think we already did that page, which was pretty fast, admittedly. Yeah, some of these are pretty short on text, so I think I am up next. I had a purpose.
A mission. My tribe grew.
We became an army. My mission became their purpose. To rescue Madison.
And Madison is his wife in the lore, for those who don't know. He ends up getting married to her just before the apocalypse actually happens. And then she ends up surrendering herself to the government because she's worried that he'll fight the government and get himself killed. So she surrenders to the government just before the bombs drop. And so he then has to go across the entire country just to rescue her. Because in the lore, in the lore, they're from New York City originally. But the quarantine facility that she was sent to was in San Francisco. So, yeah.
Wait a minute, hang on, that's his wife?
Yeah.
A heterosexual relationship in a comic book.
Yeah.
How long's it been?
God.
It's been 25 years.
It's been 84 years.
God.
Johnny says, is there any symbolism behind her being named Madison? I am not sure, to be honest. I mean, maybe in theory, but I'm not sure. Also, as in rip your heart out, rip yourself a new one, or a different rhino. As in the rip yourself a new one, I'm presuming. Like I said, we'll be covering that because one of the next gangs we'll be seeing, I think, mains that. So, also, we can see on the bottom panel there in the background another tank from the game. And that is the Inferno, which is rather self-explanatory. It is a flamethrower tank. This guy. And its specialty, like I said, it uses flamethrowers, and this turns out to be really, really good at killing rhinos, as well as some of the other tanks. Ura says, much better than Uruk after the nukes, it doesn't change much. Fair enough. And she's captured in San Francisco. Well, she was captured in New York, but she was sent to San Francisco. That's the lore. All right. And, yeah, let's go ahead and carry on. I think we did that. Ooh, did that page, so let's go ahead and see what's next. And who was reading last? Nathan?
Yeah, so Tyros next.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. A second. Madison was to be a ruler, or Queen Law, but there was a long way to go before this could happen.
Johnny asks, can you have the Inferno be painted red? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because there's actually 4 different team colors you can pick. Blue, which is the normal, green, red, and yellow. All right. A lot stood between me and my love. I think you're up next, Alfarius.
Oh. Evil warrior gangs bent on my mission.
Jeez, that's too close for comfort. Power up.
You could tell that somehow the marketing team decided that that had to be in the comic somewhere. We have power-ups. Okay, we're just going to have him say power-up at one point. But
Tyros, I didn't know you were in this comic.
Go for yourself.
I saw it. Knew it.
He knows exactly who I'm referring to.
Alright, so I'm going to cover some more lore here real quick, since again, you do want to know this to get into it. So, Madison, okay, so he called her a Queen Lord, which is actually a thing in the game. The women are all referred to as Queen Lords. The reason is because when the virus finally burned out, and by the way, spoiler alert, but it turns out the quarantine camps didn't actually work.
No surprise!
Who could have seen that coming? But It turns out that okay, so the virus killed off 99.9% of women, but the 0.1% that survived all get called Queen Lords. And there's a reason why they survive that gets established in the sequel, which I'll be explaining at the end of the comic here. But yes, all the women are referred to as Queen Lords. And most of the men that are left are massive simps. Except for Giga Chads, apparently. But that is the established canon there. And yes, the Queen Lords are treated as basically deities, more or less. So, yeah, that's covered. Secondly...
This game was very prophetic.
Yes, it was. Secondly, the tank on the bottom there that you get a glimpse of shooting at Griffin, that is a rhino. And I also get to... But yeah, like I said, it's a dedicated tank destroyer. The armor's all in the front. There's no real armor on the sides or rear. The best way to kill this is to obviously flank it, because it dies very quickly when you shoot it from the sides or rear, but it can absolutely take on a Goliath head-on. It's also vulnerable to flamethrower attacks, because no protection on the sides or rear, and grenades are extremely lethal to these things as well. So, yeah. And as far as the gang that is known for driving them, prepare yourselves, it is these guys.
Oh, the Dark Angels.
The Dark Angels.
This is mine. The Dark Angels consider themselves children of God. Their mission to reshape the world in His name. Their mission is to rid what is left of the world of all sinners, in order to create a new utopia comprised of servants of their God.
So yeah, the Dark Angels, ladies and gentlemen, are the main villains of the original game, which I'm sure is sure to bring a laugh to people who play 40K. These guys also, by the way, make a comeback. They're one of the other few gangs that survives to make a comeback in the sequel, when they get a very distinct
Oh
redesign.
my fucking
My
god,
God,
that
they are the
cone
Shadow
hair.
Wizard Money Gang.
Oh,
They're
but
the Mandela Wizard Money Gang.
oh, and if it wasn't enough that these guys, if the comparisons to 40K weren't enough, you want to know what these guys' special power-up that they start with is in the sequel?
What's
What
that?
was it?
Cloaking. So
Oh
they
my God.
and they main
What the fuck?
the Rhino. They main the Rhino, so that's their main tank. So these guys, you can describe them as their favorite activity is hiding inside their metal boxes.
I wonder if these are nods to Warhammer 40k or it's coincidences at this point.
There is another tank that they kind of get known for using in the PlayStation 1 version, and for those who don't know, the PS1 version has some exclusive tanks to it and it alone, and that is this guy, the M80. It's a kamikaze tank. And from what I understand, the lore of it is what they'll do is anyone that they capture, they'll brainwash and then they'll shove into this as expendable cannon fodder.
The religion of peace.
There's other elements in the lore to these guys as well. Apparently that they practice ritualistic sacrifices and stuff like that. Not exactly nice people in the lore, we'll say that. They also ended up teaming up with the Skull Riders and another gang at the end of the original game. So it was them, the Skull Riders, and the third gang, which does not make it into the sequel, is these guys, the Aftershocks. I guess I'm up on that, so... After earthquakes, firestorms, and the ravages of nuclear war decimated Southern California, this gang headed up north to continue the carnage. Made up of freaks, punks, and post-apocalyptic mutants, they rock the bay.
That guy on the left is handsome Squidward the Mohawk.
And of course, the freaks come from California.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, the really, really messed up freaks we'll probably be covering later on. I've already shown Nathan some of them, and if you thought Edge was a thing before in this comic and in the lore, well, Nathan can tell you.
Yeah, it gets way spicier. Like this is, I think this is the one franchise that like Ace gets like really artistically dedicated to, and we've had sessions where he's shown me this shit, and fucking hell, this isn't even the half of it.
Oh god.
But yeah, these guys.
We need another game.
Yeah, they do. There's actually some people working on some porting this over to PC, from what I understand. But yeah, the lore of these guys also, the Aftershocks, is they like to deliberately cause natural disasters as well for shits and giggles. Like, one of the things that they apparently did in the lore is explode a nuke under the coast of San Francisco Bay, which caused tsunamis, earthquakes, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they did this just for shits and giggles.
Maybe these guys aren't that bad after all.
So they are the funny king of eco-terrorists.
They're the shit posters of eco-terrorism.
Sets off a nuke under San Francisco Bay and just like leaves and goes, this will surely affect the trout population.
Alright, so let's go ahead and carry on for some more of this comic. Ooh. There we are. And I think we are up to... here we go. So, who was it? It was Nathan that did the next bit. So, Urus, you're up.
Yeah. No matter how many I killed.
More. There were more. Many more to take their place. So, this tank right here that you see in the foreground is another one. I'm going to cover real quick. And that is this guy right here, the Rattler. The Rattler, however, and we're going to see this. Yeah, as you can tell, it's a minigun with
A minigun on threads.
Yeah. It's basically the big brother to the Moto tank, more or less. It does the same.
I could just imagine the meme of like 5 of these appearing on the horizon in an ambush, and all of them collectively go, "Rattling, boys."
Let me read some of the comments here. Johnny says, wait, I want to see these two guys in the meme with the astronauts. Wait, it's all battle tanks? Always has been. If they're treated as deities, I'd imagine people giving them names like Ishtars, Aphrodites, Ellens, as in of Troy, before calling them Queen Lords. Yeah, they could do that, but that's what they just call them in the game, more or less. Johnny says, I'm going to 86 ya, I'm going to M80 ya, Nani, kaboom, and get lost, shockword. Okay, so Johnny says, you guys love the rainbow? Well, have a flood. Alright, let's go ahead and carry on. I think you're up, Alfarius.
We will be drinking for power down time. Go!
Alright, Nathan and Urus, you're both up. 1, 2, 3.
Fire!
Alright, so... we also now get another gang here introduced. A gang that is, in the lore, made up almost entirely of women. The Storm Ravens. So you might be wondering, hang on, if in the lore most of the women are no longer around, how did this gang come about to be? Well, I actually get to explain a little bit of lore that gets revealed in the sequel, so... You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the big plot twist for the cause of the apocalypse in the games. The virus was not just from nature. it was grown in a lab.
Shocking.
But here's the reason. But what's interesting is why it was grown in a lab. See, the main villain of the sequel, which we will actually be seeing at the end of this, found a special ability that apparently some women have, and also some guys as well, but she decides to create a virus that exclusively targets women that don't have this ability. And you remember when Osmegon was talking in... anyone who was on Osmegon's server was talking about how edgy the comic book was?
Mm-hmm.
This ability is referred to in lore as the Edge.
Oh my god.
And the Edge is, in a nutshell, force powers. People who are force sensitive, more or less. So it turns out the big plot twist that gets revealed in the sequel is that the apocalypse was caused because someone decided to create a virus as a glorified eugenics program to turn everyone into force-sensitive users.
I can see that happening.
So yeah, that is, in a nutshell, the plot twist. Although, also, the Storm Ravens are another gang that... Oh, right. So I actually do have to talk about this. I do have to read the description for this gang. And by the way, in the original game, they were actually an Easter egg gang. But in the sequel, they became one of the main gangs and one of the main villainous gangs in the game. But anyways, here we go.
This one is Alfarius, right?
Oh yeah, I think it is Alfarius. You're right.
Alright. Storm Ravens. From their point of view, men were responsible for the apocalypse, and everything else for that matter. And only a new matriarchal order will be able to build a new society, free from violence of male control.
Plot twist, the virus...
God.
Plot twist, the virus that caused the apocalypse was created by a woman.
So
I say we should spread our... As I was saying, as always, the feminists are wrong.
So yeah, the apocalypse was created, or the virus that caused it was created by a woman in the lore, and also these women end up being one of the main villains in the sequel as well. Like I said, this comic can be hilariously based sometimes. And on that subject, they also got a redesign in the sequel.
Oh god, no space. Well, a paperback goes a long way.
I guess the one on the left there has an absolute galaxy brain. This is what happens to you when you read all the books in the library. Johnny says, to hell with the midichlorians. Hey, boss. That's what a Jedi would say, right? Johnny says, irony. Alright, so yeah. Let's go ahead and... So yeah. But it makes sense now why the Storm Ravens are a thing in the lore, because, well... Every single woman that's left is a Force user, basically, whereas only 1 in 1,000 men happen to have the Edge. Griffin Spade, by the way, just so happens to be one of them. But anyways, let's go ahead and carry on.
He's the protagonist. He has to be special.
Yeah. Alright. Griffin, you are dead! Alfarius, I think you're up.
Oh. Hate you! Oh, hold on, I gotta redo that. We hate you!
Especially fitting, given that we just talked about how they're all Force users.
Finally, against all the odds, my odyssey finished. San Francisco.
Oh, shit. Madison, my love.
Today, it seems such a long time ago. Next page.
Huh.
Alfarius, goddamn,
Mm-hmm.
wake up.
Like all these, there was a happy ending.
I guess you get to be Griffin in this one, Nathan, and Uros gets to be Madison.
Yes, Eros, say my name lovingly.
I am going to fucking suck you when you sleep.
I'm sure you will. Madison.
Griffin.
Madison. Oh, sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon as well. Everyone forgets Brandon.
Look, he is not important.
I couldn't read it because the pages are like that fucking tiny. Like, I know the pages are recovered, but it's not like the comic streams that I'm used to.
Oh, my bad. I can zoom in a little bit. There we are. But yeah.
Open it in a browser. I am doing that.
Yeah, no, so am I. I've just got to zoom in on every single one because somebody decided to do the pages individually, Ace. A Google document was too hard, Ace, was it?
All right. I love also, by the way, in the sequel, one of the things you try to do is rescue Brandon from the White House.
Oh no!
And then only for the main villain to flee away with him on a helicopter, and one of the characters to shout, and I quote, "Don't shoot, Brandon's on that copter." You know, as they're leaving the White House. But this Brandon is actually competent. He can actually defeat stairs.
Ah,
The final boss.
that's a step up for sure.
Hey.
5 years have passed since the plague. I now have a wife and a wonderful son.
Looks like a storm is coming. What the heck is that?
Krish. Crack.
As long as Cassandra lives, there will be no happy ending in my world.
Let the game begin.
So yeah, we get a hint of a few more gangs, as well as the main villain from the sequel, Cassandra, who is the one who created the virus in the first place. You find this out because when you reach Paris, you find a computer under the Eiffel Tower that lets you know that she was the one that created it.
Hang on till we finally find out who is in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Alfarius got that.
So, I'm going to cover some of the gangs from the sequel here that you see real quick, just for the sake of it. The first one that we saw is these guys. These guys are the Shadow Ops. The lore for them is that they were CIA operatives in the U.S. government before the apocalypse, and ended up, forming their own gang, and ended up coming under the sway of Cassandra in the lore. Their main specialty is the teleporter, although the tank that they use is also a pretty advanced one. It is this guy, and I actually got this from the N64 there. And you can actually see it much better resolution as well. But this is a hover tank, and it does exactly what it says on the tin.
It hovers and tanks.
It's a very fast tank too. It has also something about the moto tanks. You actually in the game you can flatten a moto tank by running over it, And these, along with the Goliaths, are really good at doing that. When you do, you get a little pancake texture of the moto tank on the road from where it was. Also, I should mention this is a game where dead tanks actually stay until they're blown up and whatever. So you can have dozens of dead tanks on a map or at a time, unless they've been destroyed or whatever. They also get another tank that's very rare, which is this one, the Marksman. It's a laser tank. It's used for picking off enemies at long range. It's kind of self-explanatory. The Cold Warriors are another one of the gangs that get this. It's a pretty rare one, though, so...
Wait a minute, hang on. So who's this new gang based off of?
Like I said, they're ex-CIA.
Oh, okay. So the CIA have a certain tank that can pick off people at long ranges.
Yes!
Almost like I think that they are known to do this sort of thing.
Good
Usually
point.
they always have a second tank in reserve, though.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys.
Yeah.
So that's the first of the gangs.
So what, Ace?
Huh?
Do all their tanks use tracer rounds that glow?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Oh my god.
With the exception of the Marksman, because it fires a laser, and that's pretty much instantaneous.
Oh my god. If I ever do somehow manage to play this game, I know what faction I'm choosing.
They're a fun one to play.
Unsurprising.
So, the other gang that was shown are these guys. The Crimson's Guard. It's a gang made up of, I think, British military, judging from the uniforms.
They're British.
Yes.
Hey, look, guys, it's me. Ace, fuck off! You just doxed me.
Yes. You got a license for that tank, mate.
These guys main the Inferno, so their specialty is flamethrower tanks, and they also get the plasma bolts, which have the ability to ricochet off of surfaces, so you can actually bounce them off of corners and whatnot. And those do actually a lot of damage as well, but they also can occasionally bounce back to you if you're not careful. They are also rivaled to another gang that you get to see in the lore in the sequel as well. These women, the Iron Maidens. These are British women that apparently rule in West London in the lore.
Hang on, hang the fuck on. Right, no, those aren't women. The one in the above image in the middle is a British woman. Don't get it twisted.
It's a mad baby.
Their speciality in the lore is heavy, especially heavy armor. So these women main the Goliath, and they also get shields as their power up. Shields that can deflect shots and send it right back to whoever fired it at you.
Well, that checks out. British woman, I don't know. Let's say armor.
And there's one other gang I might as well show just to cover all of them from... Well, technically Madison also gets her own gang, and this is what she looks like in the sequel as well. Her thing is guided missiles that shows she spawns with them. And she also gets a special tank in her own right called the Flippy, which is this guy. It's a tank that flips itself sideways, so you can actually strafe with it.
Do a barrel roll.
Exactly.
That's a tank design, alright.
Indeed. And the last gang from the sequel I'm going to be covering here real quick are these people. This is Les Miserables. It's a French gang.
They
Oh,
are
God.
French. Kill, destroy.
They also are the only gang to get their own very unique tank in as well, aside from Cassandra, who gets the Annihilator. But they get this bad boy, the M2 Hydra. It's a double-barreled tank, and it's with a high rate of fire, as you can probably tell. Fun to use, actually.
There is something wrong here.
To be honest, I thought it.
Why do the
Well,
French have so much firepower?
I literally thought it was just going to be a white flag on treads.
The lore for these guys, the Les Miserables, is that apparently they're a slave gang that Cassandra made to defend Paris or whatever, and that you end up liberating them when you free Paris. And so they apparently switch sides and join you. And also, Iron Maidens end up joining you as well, because they're the Crimson Guard sided with Cassandra as well. So that covers the sequel gangs, as well as, I think, pretty much all of the major... Well, with the exception of a few additional tanks, which I'm just going to show off here. 2 additional tanks, really. This guy, the Bulldog, which is an artillery piece tank, which is exclusive to the PS1. And then you have the Shredder, which is another PS1 exclusive, which is a minigun with a turret this time.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. That just looks like the fucking shit. What's it called? That looks like the
Rattler.
the Gatling cannon tank from Command and Conquer General Zeta Wabba on the Chinese side.
You're right, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glory to China.
Minigun reporting for duty.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the sequel gangs. So I'm also going to, for the sake of it, also talk about the original gangs as well. Some of the ones that we didn't really cover yet. So first of all, I mentioned the National Guardsmen that were in the original game that sided with the that sided against the U.S. government. That's these guys, Charlie Company. So who's up reading this?
I think it was Nathan's story.
When the US Army fragmented, the surviving remnants formed Charlie Company. Highly mechanized, highly disciplined, and highly likely to kill anybody they encounter, deader than yesterday's roadkill.
So yeah, these guys ended up setting up their HQ in Las Vegas. They also ended up teaming up with 2 other gangs in the lore. Those other 2 for being the Nuclear Knights and the Nuclear Knights and the Mech Maniacs. Sorry about that. And Mech Maniacs are going to be a fun one to talk about a little bit later, but Nuclear Knights, they're basically super mutants from Fallout. So, Urus, would you kindly do the honors?
Okay. The Knights were a secret government experiment that went wrong. After the apocalypse, these super soldiers escaped from their lockdown cells and armed themselves with the latest in secret weapon technology.
So these guys came from Area 51. As you can probably tell, were failed government experiment, as it said there. They main in the game, in the actual game itself, they main the Goliath. As in their tank, they use nothing but Goliaths. They also get nukes as their pickup that they occasionally get.
Well,
Okay.
this is all unsurprising.
And they are as perfectly balanced as that sentence sounded.
I mean, with their speed, their firepower, and their armor, why would you use anything else?
Siege is laughing. Johnny says, the guy on the right looks like Christopher Nolan's Bane if he were British. I'm thinking he's talking about the Crimson Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Cut off 1 and 2 will replace them. That's a lot of Bulldog. That's a load of Bulldog. And Saki, what's your newest plan to take out those stupid turtles? I'm going to take them out with my guns, Krang. Your guns? Ha! These bad boys. He's talking about the Shredder here. Yeah, fair enough. And then the other gang that these guys were allied to, both the Nuclear Knights and Charlie Company in Las Vegas. Oh, by the way, like I said, you actually do go to Area 51 in the game, and then you find out that UFOs exist in Area 51, and you can even blow one up because it's battle tanks.
Why not?
But on that subject, believe it or not, there's also the Mech Maniacs. These guys, who are basically Alex Jones the gang.
They remind me of the Goliath from Necromunda.
So, I think it's my turn, so I'll go ahead and read this myself. Mech Maniacs, combining conspiratorial paranoia, right-wing militia politics, and a whole mess of weapons. The Maniacs are a mechanized army made up of survivalistic extremists that have proclaimed Armageddon as their national holiday.
I like these guys.
Me too.
They also, for their power-up, they get the Gun Buddies. What are Gun Buddies, you ask? They're automated turrets. They're basically sentry guns from Team Fortress 2. And these guys get them as their power-up. Also, the Gun Buddies get a buff in the sequel as well, and one of the abilities... So you get several different flavors of Gun Buddy. You've got the standard double-barreled ones in the sequel, the quad-barreled ones, and pop-up turret ones, as well as single-barreled ones. And the double barrels are standards. In the original game, you have machine gun buddies that are the regular. Then you have the larger, I guess, laser, and I think there might be a guided missile variant as well. And that's basically it in the original. But yeah, these guys can just spot... Oh, and by the way, you can basically plop down as many gun buddies as you want. You can basically... I actually did it before in one match where I just had 100 of these things just spread out across the entire map, and laughed as stuff just tried driving across and died instantly.
So you destroyed everything.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, that's these guys, and I think there's maybe one more gang left, and it's the one that Nathan knows about. That's extremely edgy. So, Alfarius, I think you're up. The Psycho Brigade.
Okay. Imagine a nightmare army of convicts and insane asylum inmates that together resemble a pack of rabid, pit-trained Rottweilers who have learned to drive tanks. Wow. Works of the Marquis de Sade to memory. Oh,
They're fine.
You know, when you have to reference Marquis de Sade in your game to describe a faction, that's probably not a good sign. For those who don't know, Marquis de Sade is, well, if his name sounds familiar, that's because that's where the word sadist comes from.
Oh!
Oh. I didn't know that.
Apparently, he was an author in France that was known for some completely degenerate books that he had written.
Oh!
It's actually Count Dankula did a video on it, and apparently it was bad enough that even the front cover he had to put tape over, because otherwise YouTube would just take down the video with a strike.
Oh! Oh, Lord.
Well, that is fucked up.
Yeah.
Guy's a maniac, yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's the lore on those guys. They're escaped convicts and insane asylum inmates, and they ended up taking over Chicago. Checks out.
So nothing changed.
Yeah, sounds like a normal day in Chicago to me.
So yeah, it ends up Griffin ends up going to Chicago, and by the way, the Psycho Brigade ended up teaming up with the Skull Riders, and you ended up fighting and defeating both of them to take over Chicago yourself. But yeah, like I said, I think that's the edgiest bit in the whole video game series there.
Yeah, that's pretty edgy.
That's probably the part where my live stream would get demonetized. If my live stream were monetized.
I mean, we talk about female genocide and more or less slavery. I think we are a bit too late for the monetization.
Yeah, fair point. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered that. So what do you guys think about the comic and the setting so far?
It sounds awesome.
Personally, I will have liked more when it came out. And I will like more now. But it was not bad.
Agreed. Alfarius?
I find everything that I've heard today absolutely amazing.
All right. And Nathan?
I kind of like the comic for how like balls to the walls it is, but when you read the comic and then you look at it now, and it's gotten a fair few things accurate when it really wasn't meaning to be accurate.
It's concerning.
Yes, yes it is.
No wonder fucking Ace is happy all the time. Like he's reading like current world affairs, and he's like, "Oh my god, is that a BattleTanx reference?"
It's like it's on a JoJo's reference, but instead I'm just looking at random articles from CNN.
Oh god.
You have. I really. Again, I was 10 when I played this game. I never thought, oh, this is going to happen in 15 to 20 years. And it did.
Yes, it did. As you can probably
Okay.
guess, this game is getting a bit more recognition following the whole, we'll say flu. We'll call it the flu. So yeah, it got a couple of articles being made about it after that, and also, but here's some of the other stuff I was going to cover before we actually leave. This game had some hilarious advertising to go along with it. For both the original game and the sequel. So let's actually have a look at... So here's some of the ads for the sequel.
I like what I see.
Yeah, a Cold Warriors tank chasing down the Teletubbies. But it's not the only one that got this treatment.
On the Golden Road.
And what else do we have? There's a few other ads. Here's one for the original game. Let's read it real quick, assuming I can get this. It's still loading up, apparently. We'll wait for it to do that, and yeah, once it is. You drive a tank, you destroy major cities, you rescue beautiful women. Welcome to the world of battle tanks.
Solved.
I'll take 10. And then one more.
I'll buy your entire stock.
Stock.
There's also that one advertisement that made it, or two advertisements actually, that made it to TV. You remember the Fabrics Bear commercials from the 90s?
Fuck, I know.
Alright. Well, I'm going to show you that eventually, but let's see some of the other stuff advertisement-wise. There's this one, apparently there's a German ad as well. This one right here. And, yeah, the European version, like I said, came out in 2000, which I think this comic might have been made to help promote or something. I don't know, but it's a very, very rare comic. It's actually so rare that it was at risk of... I think it was potentially at risk of becoming lost media, so... Alright, so here's another one. Love War and Tanks. What is it good for? 3DO's BattleTanx for the N64 breaks down the barriers and shows that destruction is something you can share with your loved ones and friends. Based. The year 2001. Bug. Okay. Yeah, and it's talking about the virus, obviously.
Oh no.
This bit also, I think, from Nintendo Power shows some of the power-ups. Some of the power-ups. There's actually a fair bit more than just that, and this is for the sequel. But then you actually get to the contest here. Apparently, they had a contest where the winner could not only get a gang designed after them, but they also could ride a tank with their buddies.
Oh, shit.
That's
What?
awesome.
Yes, it is. Apparently, there's some other cool prizes as well, but Yeah, that was actually a thing that they had back then, apparently. I'm not sure which gang got that they were part of. Maybe Les Miserables, maybe Skull Riders, but with the art design being the way it is, you can't really quite tell, can you? But whoever won that, yeah. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you the advertisement once I get to it. There's 2 ads here, admittedly. Let me actually see if I can... BattleTanx ad. It's one of the most famous N64 commercials of all time for a game because it's... I'll just go ahead and plop that up for you guys to watch. Whoops, wrong one.
Mistakes were made.
Yeah, I just accidentally posted the link to the Discord there, or almost, but there we go. Now we'll go ahead, drop it here, and we get to see the ad in all its glory.
Whee! For the brightest colors always. What the? Uh-oh!
Introducing BattleTanx for Nintendo 64.
Even the advertisements are incredibly based for this game.
Explosive tank action for up to 4 players.
BattleTanx.
And yes, they made a sequel. Let's actually have a look at that.
You look at how easy it was to make marketing before.
I know.
You just had to give people what they wanted.
So a $6 million man reference for the sequel trailer.
Softer. Better. The new BattleTanx Global Assault. Stronger, faster, better.
That was something. So yeah. The BattleTanx games and comic book, ladies and gentlemen. A blast to go through, I think. Everyone agree?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully this does actually get, hopefully with the ports coming out and whatnot, this actually does get a proper sequel treatment. And it also, by the way, I'll admit, finding out about this comic, it actually brought me down something of a rabbit hole, where I ended up watching, checking for other games to see if they also had comics. And turns out I found a few more games from the 90s that had some comics that I'm going to try to find to actually cover at some point. Some of the games include Crimson Skies, which has a comic, Vigilante 8 Second Offense, and Future Cop LAPD of all things. And the Future Cop one apparently is actually, it's a 50-page comic, and there's 2 issues, so it's 50 pages, from my understand, per issue. So it's 100 pages. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of comic there, which I would be really interested to see how that goes, because Future Cop isn't that heavy on the lore, admittedly, because but it is another pretty fun game. Also was arguably the first MOBA game ever created, although that was a secondary multiplayer mode, and a really fun one at that. Johnny says, they made a sequel, thank you, BattleTanx. Yes. Johnny also says, wash the lameness away with the blood of your enemies, BattleTanx.
Nice.
Apparently that German trailer says... I don't know if that might not have been what it says, but... No, it just says load, aim, fire, I think. On Big Ben there. So, good to know. But anyways, so yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything that needed to be covered. So, yeah. Anything else anyone else wants to add?
Other than we need more.
We absolutely need more. We absolutely need more. And hopefully, like I said, that fan remake, that fan port for the PC will also spur interest in getting a proper sequel. Because, yeah, I know people have been trying to do that, so hopefully this goes well. Johnny says, that's a lot of pages of tanks, blood, mutants, and queen lords. Yes, it is. Alright, so I think this is a good time to go ahead and call it. So, yeah, in any case, this has been Ace.
Alfarius.
Udos.
Nathan.
And we all hope to see you all again soon. Till then, take care. Ace out.